Genesis 37 is where we are. We began this journey on last week, and we're going to look at part 2 today. Genesis 37 is where we are. If you have your app, you have the slides in the Coram Deo, so please follow along if you're so inclined. Last week we debunked the myth that Joseph was given a coat by his father of multicolored coat, and that was tough for us because we've heard ever since we were in Sunday school that Joseph was gifted this technicolored dream coat. Well, we found out that what made the coat special was that it was long. It went to his palms and to his ankles and his feet, which marked him and designated him as a prestigious individual by his father, Jacob. And it created animosity and hatred and hostility and opposition with his brothers, because here his father's particularism, here his father's favoritism alienated his brothers from him. And we saw that they hated him more, and then they hated him even more. Not just because of his father's favoritism, but also because of God's favor. God gave him 2 dreams. And in those dreams, his brothers and his father and his mothers and stepmothers would all be subject to him, that he would reign and rule over them, and not even his father, who adores him and worships the ground he walks on, approved of Joseph's second dream. But God, Joseph is special because his father favors him and God favors him. And so Joseph is sitting in the catbird seat until this week. So remember, we've kind of framed Genesis 37 around these 3 Ds, right? It's Joseph's dreams and Jacob's doting over and fawning over Joseph, and then his brother's disdain for his father's favor and for God's favor. And so this week, his brothers, because they are envious of their little brother, they got to do something about this privileged little brother of theirs. And so let's follow this story on this week. Verses 12 through 17, Joseph takes a trip to supervise his brothers. Remember, he's got this coat that says that Joseph is management, he's not labor. He's not a part of the labor force. He is prestigious and preeminent amongst his brothers. He don't do the manual labor like pasture the sheep like his brothers. And so his father's going to send him to go and manage and direct and supervise his brothers. That's not going to go well. You guys know where this is going. Verses 12 through 15, let's just look at a few verses together. It says, his brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. And Israel, or Jacob, said to Joseph, your brothers, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, son, I'm sending you to them. Joseph said, Dad, I'm ready to go. Then in verse 14, Israel said to him, go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me. So he sent him from the Hebron Valley, and he went to Shechem. Joseph's brothers are 50 miles from Hebron in Shechem, pasturing Jacob's flocks. One of the things I wondered was, why did they have to go 50 miles north to find land that was suitable for... Remember, Jacob is filthy rich. Isaac was filthy rich. Abraham was like, Elon Musk or Bill Gates or somebody just filthy rich like that in their day. Just flocks and herds and hundreds of servants, and they even had camels, like they had Maseratis parked in the garage. The family was just filthy rich. but yet they've got to go 50 miles north to take herds and flocks to go and find land to pasture. Now, for those of you that have been with us in Genesis, when you hear that Jacob's sons are heading to Shechem, that should unnerve you a little bit, right? Why should that unnerve you? Because the last time they were in Shechem, Dinah, their sister, was raped by Shechem. And you know that Simeon and Levi, they avenged their sister's rape. And all of the brothers participated in the slaughter of the Shechemites. Well, you know, Joseph was probably too little, and Benjamin hadn't been born yet, or if he was really little. So these brothers were persona non grata in Shechem. They killed all of the men in the city of Shechem and took their wives and their children and absorbed them into the Jacob community. So the fact that they are going to the scene of their crime to pasture their sheep should unnerve us a little bit and say, that's interesting. Why are they doing that? So they are back there at the scene of their crime to find land to pasture the sheep. What's interesting is that in verse 14, Jacob may sense that this is a dangerous mission that the brothers are on, because in your English text, you don't see what Jacob is saying in the Hebrew. The text in verse 14 says, "Then Israel said to them, 'Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing.'" In the Hebrew text, the text says, "Go and see if your brothers are experiencing shalom. Go and see if the sheep are experiencing shalom. Is there peace? Go see if your brothers and the flocks are in peace." Why wouldn't they be in peace? Because he remembers what the bloodbath that they did in Shechem. So maybe there's an ambush waiting for them. Jacob is concerned. He says, "Son, go see if everything is peaceful in Shechem." I love this because Gordon Wenham says this, that Jacob, fearing attacks from outside the family, is apparently blind to the lack of peace within the family. He is sending his son in the harm's way, and either he's negligent or nonchalant about that. We talked about that on last week. And here he's sending his son to his brothers 50 miles away, knowing that they hate his guts. And yet Jacob sends him anyway. Interesting that this trouble awaits Joseph, and Jacob, who loves him and adores him, is the catalyst for Jacob's trouble. Furthermore, one of the things that struck me too is that Shechem, being 50 miles away from Hebron, is a 3 or 4 day journey. Why does Jacob, who loves Joseph so much, why does he send him on a 3 or 4 day journey alone? That's dangerous. There are wild animals and thugs and gangsters and hoodlums on the way, and he's sending Joseph in this prestigious coat that would have been a flag to everybody saying, "Hey, rob me. I'm a person of substance, and I am a person of means and resources. Look at this coat. This makes no sense." I'm overly protective of my girls, and that gets me in trouble at home because I cherish them. I'd give my life for my girls. And the fact that Jacob loves Joseph, like my grandmother would say, the sun rises and sets in Joseph, and yet he sends him in the harm's way. Not just because of what's waiting at the end of the journey with his brothers, but all of that trouble that Joseph could encounter along the way. When Jacob has got hundreds and hundreds of servants and slaves and men in his tribe that have weapons, and he sends his son without a weapon alone to go meet with, something just don't smell right about this story. Look at how vulnerable Joseph is as he gets to Shechem. Verses 15 through 17, the text says, a man found Joseph there wandering in the field and asked him, what are you looking for? Joseph arrived safely at Shechem, but he can't locate his brothers. Verse 15 says that Joseph is wandering in Shechem like a lost sheep separated from the flock and his shepherd. He's floundering. He's flailing around. He doesn't know whether to go this direction or that direction. And he's just out, just discombobulated. Where are my brothers? They were supposed to be here. Shechem. I'm in Shechem. I mean, they're not here. I don't know which direction. He has no idea what's going on. And it shows that Joseph is vulnerable, and that he can be easily victimized because he doesn't know what's going on. But he meets a man. He says, man, you look lost. Can I help you with something? And then look at verse 16. Joseph says, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flocks? I love this. The random chance meeting that Joseph finds a man in Shechem who knows where his brothers are. Look at verse 17. It says, they moved. The man says to Joseph, oh, your brothers, they moved on from here. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. And Joseph set out after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Is this random chance that Joseph meets a man who points him northward to Dothan? Is this meeting with this man, is it serendipity or sovereign superintendence? Is it good luck or is it God? Is it a fluke or the Father's favor? Is it happenstance or heavenly help? Moses, the author of the text, doesn't tell us. He wants us to draw our own conclusion. What are the chances that he meets a man who doesn't want to harm him, doesn't want to rob him, doesn't want to kill him, but is willing to help? Some unknown random man. And Joseph is in this gaudy, glitzy coat. The man could say, hey man, I'll tell you everything you want to know for that coat. Just wanted to help. Is this man human or not? We don't know. Moses wants us to draw our own conclusion. He sends them to Dothan. Look at the map. You have the slides. Hebron is here, about 20 miles south of Jerusalem, just south of Bethlehem. 50 miles to Shechem, and then another 14 or 15 miles all the way at the top to Dothan. 65 miles that Joseph has to travel north to catch up with his brothers. Now their treachery in verses 18 through 24, the brothers' treachery toward their brother Joseph. And this is not new to us. Genesis is filled with this kind of savage, barbaric, inhumane treatment of family members and folks. And so we're desensitized at this point in Genesis. But look at these first few verses with me. It says in verse 18, his brothers, they is his brothers, they saw him in a distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him. Verse 19, they said to one another, oh, look, here comes this dream expert, this master, this owner, this Lord, this sovereign one of dreams. They mock him. So now, come on, verse 20, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns, these pits, and We can say that a vicious animal ate him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Joseph's coat makes him conspicuous to his brothers. They see him coming in a distance. Joseph, you can't sneak up on nobody when you got a coat like Joseph has got. Right? They see you coming loud and proud in a distance. But because he's a way off, they conspire to murder their own brother. And they mock him because he is the dreamer. Master of all dreams is this Joseph. Now this is interesting because his brothers have no idea that Joseph's got a gift as it relates to these dreams, because it's going to be that gift that God uses to bless him in some later situations and circumstances. But the brothers' conspiracy includes a premeditated plan to murder Joseph in the A part of verse 20, and then the cover-up consists of a claim that a wild beast devoured Joseph. Don't miss the fact that the brothers' animosity is directed not so much at Joseph's gaudy garment, but his dreams, which detail Joseph's exaltation and their humiliation. See, it's not about the coat anymore. What they're furious about and what they're at odds with Joseph is about those dreams. Because our little brother can't reign and rule over us. That's not the way the world works. But within the kingdom and within the sovereignty and providence of God, God can do whatever he wills. And so they want to do something about their brother and the dreams. Look at Reuben, who intercedes. Now this is fascinating because this is a head scratcher. Verses 21 and 22. When Reuben heard this, he tried to save Joseph from his brothers. And he said, let's not take his life. Verse 22, Reuben also said to them, don't shed blood. Throw him in the pit, the cistern in the wilderness, and don't lay a hand on him, because really Reuben was intending to rescue him from them and return him to his father. Now, you guys have been with us in Genesis. You know the last person that should be advocating for to be the moral compass of the brothers is Reuben. Reuben participated in the bloodbath, the slaughter, the massacre at Shechem along with the other brothers. So he's just as treacherous as they are. But remember, Reuben is the oldest of the 12 sons. And remember, Reuben is the one that committed incest with his stepmother, Bilhah, in order to defile her so that Leah would become matriarch after Rachel died. Reuben did that. One of the most despicable and dishonorable things you can do is for a son to sleep with one of his father's wives that's not his mother. And Reuben did it. So how is it that Reuben now all of a sudden got religion? He's got some moral convictions. He didn't have no moral convictions when they were slaughtering the Shechemites, and when he was in there doing his business with his stepmother, he didn't have moral convictions then. Isn't it interesting? Now, a couple of things are going on here. Either Reuben is trying to get in his father's good graces by saying, hey, my father is absolutely positively in love with my little brother. And I know my dad hates me because I slept with one of his wives. Now maybe I can make amends and reconcile with my dad if I return Joseph home safely. He don't care about Joseph. He cares about getting in his father's graces, because Reuben is in line to get the birthright blessing because he's the oldest. He wants that blessing. Or Reuben is behaving responsibly because he's the oldest, and the oldest child. Any siblings in here who were the oldest of your siblings? Just Danica. Tim, you're the oldest. Claire, okay, Chris. You guys know when you went out with your siblings, who'd they put in charge? The oldest. When me and my brother used to go out, because I was wild, my grandmother used to say to my brother, keep an eye on Airhead. That was me. Because I was loose. You turned your back and I was gone. And so my brother could never just enjoy himself because he was tasked with keeping one eye on the fun and one eye on his crazy little brother. They always told the oldest, keep an eye on your siblings, on your cousins. You make sure that everybody comes home and you make sure everybody's safe. Maybe Reuben's just acting like the oldest son, and he feels the weight of the responsibility for caring for all of his brothers. I don't know. We're not told why Reuben steps to the forefront and wants to save Joseph. If Reuben is in heaven, we can ask him, man, what changed in you that you wanted to save Joseph, but he did. Now, 23 and 24, the brothers divest Joseph of his glitzy garment and throw him into the cistern. Look at this. When Joseph came to his brothers, he has no idea what he's walking into. They stripped him of his robe, the long-sleeved robe that he had on, and they took him and threw him into the cistern or into the pit. The cistern was empty and without water. Though primarily motivated to sabotage Joseph's dreams, the brothers are secondarily thrilled to strip Joseph of his thrilling threads. Cisterns in the ancient world were large water reservoirs as deep as 20 feet, designated or designed to be filled up with rainfall during the rainy seasons and covered and protected sometimes by stones in order to save and preserve the water to be utilized during the dry, arid seasons. There were droughts in the promised land. And so they set up these water reservoirs to safeguard some of the water so when everything dried up, they could still exist. Here are a couple of pictures of a cistern. One of them is fairly not deep unless what we see at the bottom is just dirt over the centuries that has filled it up. The next picture is a massive cistern. You could almost put a whole community down off in this second cistern. And they throw Joseph probably into a cistern as large as this second picture. The prophet Jeremiah was thrown into a cistern like this, and he got muddy down off in the cistern. And in order to get Jeremiah out of the cistern, they had to drop ropes down to get him out. I think Joseph was thrown into a deep cistern like this where there's no way to get out. Oftentimes they drop pitchers down to get water out of these sort of cisterns. But before they banish him to this pit that is empty, and that gives us a hint that they may be heading for a drought because this cistern is empty. It doesn't have any water in it. I want you to notice something. The brothers have decided that they're going to kill Joseph. But then they have a change of heart. Not because of Reuben, because Reuben leaves, but look at the next few verses. Verses 25 through 30 is the transaction, the brothers' transaction to sell Joseph into slavery. They get religion, said, man, we can't kill our brother. But what we can do is sell him into slavery. Watch this, their further treachery toward Joseph. They sat down. Verse 25 says they sat down while Joseph is in the cistern. They sit down to eat a meal. When they look up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites. These are their cousins coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum and balsam and resin going down to Egypt. I want you to picture how callous and cold-blooded and cruel you got to be to have your brother crying out for his life, and you guys are sitting there having a meal while he's screaming with every ounce of energy, every fiber of his being, with every muscle that was within him. He's screaming for his life. How do we know? I'll give you a little foretaste in Genesis 42. When we get there later on this fall, we'll come across verse 42 and 21, and I want to give it to you now so you get the sense. Here it is on the screen. As the brothers are coming to grips with their dastardly deed and the consequences, they say this in Genesis 42:21. Then they said to one another, obviously we are being punished for what we did to our brother. We saw his deep distress. The Hebrew text says that Joseph's distress went down to his nephesh. His nephesh is his soul. At the core of his being, he was crying out. He was pleading with his brothers, but we didn't listen. That's why this trouble has come upon us. They realize we're dealing with the consequences because our brother was crying out at the core of his being with every ounce of energy, with his whole self. From his guts, he was crying out for mercy, for grace, for favor, for goodwill, and we didn't listen. Not only did we not listen, we had a buffet in the middle of it. Now, I don't know what's going on in this family, but how would you like to be related to these folks? Back at Genesis 37, Judah says to his brothers, now Reuben is gone. So Judah, in Reuben's absence, he becomes the spokesperson. And I want to just remind you, as we trek through Genesis, Judah is going to step up, and he's going to be the convincer in chief. Judah is going to be the one that leads his brothers. And what you'll find, and what we'll find together as we trek along in this story, the brothers are inclined to listen to Judah. Which gives us some insight as to why the great kings of Israel come from the tribe of Judah. Which is why Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. Judah becomes a leading figure amongst his 12 brothers. And so here the first time we hear Judah in Genesis or Bereshit, here's what he says. He says this. He says, what do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? 27, come on, let's sell him to our cousins, the Ishmaelites, and not lay a hand on him, for, Joseph is our brother. We hate him, but he's still flesh and blood. And then the postscript in verse 27 says what? The brothers agree. They say, Judah, you're right, man. We can't kill. We hate him, and he got to go, but we can't kill him. He belongs to us. Can we kill him? No. But do we got to get rid of him? Absolutely. He ain't got to go home, but he can't stay here. And so the brothers decide to sell Joseph into slavery. Verse 28, when the Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to their cousins, the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit, he saw that Joseph was not there, and he tore his clothes. There was a major trade route near Dothan leading across the Promised Land down near the Mediterranean, heading down to Egypt. It just is happenstance that all of this is happening along a major trade route. And so they see these traders heading from Gilead further north with all of these spices and resins and myrrh and all of these expensive commodities that they're going to take from the land of Canaan down into Egypt, and then they're going to bring some stuff back from Egypt to the land of Canaan. And so it was a barter and trade situation. I'll sell you my stuff, you sell us yours. Good old-fashioned capitalistic trade going on here in Genesis 37. But Reuben returns. Remember, what is Reuben's motivation? Reuben is saying, man, I got to get Joseph home to his father. And I got to return him safely, because this is going to be good for me if I can pull this off. And yet he returns, and behold, the Hebrew text says Joseph wasn't there. And so he tears his clothes. Tearing his clothes was an act of grief and mourning and sorrow when you get bad news that is devastating you. In the ancient world, you tore your clothes. Reuben has no idea that his brothers have sold Joseph into slavery. Reuben is worried about his own hide. As the oldest brother, he essentially says this. Watch this in verse 30. This lets us know that Reuben wasn't worried about Joseph. He's worried about his own backside. In verse 30, he says, Reuben says, he went back to his brothers and said, the boy is gone. What am I going to do? In Hebrew, the text, Reuben says, the lad is gone. Now, Joseph is a 17, 18-year-old man, but he calls him a boy. Well, he's probably a boy in relation to Reuben. He says, hey, the kid is gone. Reuben says, where am I going to go now? That's what it says in the Hebrew. Reuben says, I can't go home without my brother. So where do I go? Where do I live? Because I can't go home to my father. I can't tell him that story. You guys can go home. I can't. So where do I go from here? The English version says, what am I going to do? He's not asking about what he's going to do. He's asking, where do I live? Because I can't live at home with my dad anymore. I can't go home with that story. So Reuben is worried about his own backside. Now, last section, this is really cruel and gut-wrenching, but the brothers' trickery of Jacob as they commit two crimes in one act. Watch this. So they took Joseph's glitzy garment, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the robe in blood. Is this not poetic justice, the law of reciprocity for Jacob? Remember that when Jacob stole Esau's patriarchal blessing, remember what Jacob and Rebekah, his mother, did? Rebekah told Jacob in chapter 27, you guys remember this, go out to the flock and get two choice prime goats and bring them in here, and I'll cook a meal that your father loves. She skinned the goat and put the skins on Jacob so that he would feel hairy like Esau. You guys remember that? Notice that Jacob uses a goat and deception to trick his father Isaac to steal the patriarchal blessing. And here, the brothers use a coat, a goat, and some deception to deceive Jacob. Jacob did the same thing. And now his sons are tricking him like he tricked his father with the same goat that he tricked his father with. Folks, you cannot make this up. Goats and clothes and deception. Yeah, Jacob put on Esau's clothes, remember? Went rifling through his closet. And now here, Jacob is going to be deceived the same way. Look at verse 32 and 33. Then they sent the long sleeve robe, the coat, the special coat that his father had made him, and they send it to Jacob and says, we found this, Dad, examine it. Is this your son's robe or not? Not our brother. Notice how they refer to, is this your son's coat? Not, Dad, is this our brother's coat? No, is this your son's robe or not? Jacob recognized it. He said, it is my son's robe. He said, a vicious animal has devoured him and Joseph has been torn to pieces. The brothers enter the coat as evidence of Joseph's demise. Jacob not only confirms the authenticity of the coat, Jacob also, without prompting from the sons, concludes the exact conspired story that the sons concocted, that a wild animal has devoured Joseph and torn him to pieces. This is sad in verse 34, but Jacob now tears his clothes and puts sackcloth around his waist and mourn for his son many days. Jacob goes into this season of mourning. Reuben tore his clothes just like Jacob, but Jacob also puts on the sackcloth and sits shiva. Jewish people mourn for at least 7 days, but Jacob mourns for more than the 7 days. It says that he mourned for his son for many, many days. Look at verse 35. How distraught is Jacob? How much does he love Joseph? Look at verse 35. All Jacob's sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, Jacob said, I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning, and his father wept for him. Folks, how inhumane is it that the co-conspirators attempt to become comforters? Isn't something cold-blooded and callous about that? But Jacob refuses their condolences, their comfort, and their consolation. No, you guys leave me alone. Jacob says, I'm going to mourn for Joseph until I go meet him on the other side. That's intense. Who plans to mourn the loss of a loved one for the rest of their life? None of us. But Jacob does. Now, I want to show you, you guys may remember this from our Jonah series, but here's a sort of a rendering of how people, especially Jewish people, understood the cosmos or the universe. They saw the world much like this. Sheol is the underworld. It is the place of the dead. It was believed to be under the earth, and it was a place where people who died were gathered together until whatever was supposed to happen happened. So it's basically like a Jewish version of Catholic purgatory. All throughout, David talks about Sheol. Jonah talks about it's just a Jewish concept and understanding of the world. There is no Sheol. Either you go to heaven or you go to hell. They didn't understand that because their theology wasn't as evolved as ours. But Jacob says, until I go meet Yosef in the underworld, in the place of the dead, I'm going to be perpetually grieving and in a state of mourning. He's going to sit shiva for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, verse 36 spins on a dime because while we are thrust into Jacob's intense mourning, grief, sorrow for this beloved son that he loves more than life itself. Meanwhile, Moshe wants to turn. It's just like in a movie or a TV show. We're on that scene and bam, the scene shifts drastically and quickly. Meanwhile, verse 36, the Midianites, the Ishmaelites, the Midianites, these terms are used interchangeably. Joseph, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and a captain of the guards. Moshe spins this scene so quickly from a time of mourning and grief to what's happening real time with Joseph. It's almost like Moses is saying, while Jacob is real time mourning Joseph's death, Joseph is very much alive. The Midianites have sold him to this Egyptian important figure named Potiphar, who works in the palace guard for Pharaoh, one of the most powerful men in the world, if not the most powerful man in the world. Now this sets up this story. Let me give you a brief excursus on, and I love this, the anthropological significance of the garment motif in the Joseph Chronicles. So just listen to this. In every society, one's attire or lack thereof speaks volumes for a person's identity, social status, and or rank within the culture. Garments indicate our ethnic or national heritage, our gender, oftentimes our social class or military designation, prisoner versus free person status, employment position, to mention a few. These same cultural conventions are prevalent in the ancient Near East as well. What we have encountered in the first couple of weeks of the Joseph Chronicles and what we will see as we progress in the narrative is the significance of the role that garments play in the ebb and flow of Joseph's social status. Both his investitures and his divestitures. Joseph's social status is promoted when he receives a new garment. Conversely, his status is demoted when his garment is stripped away. In the end, as a profound reversal of fortunes, Joseph will be in a position to bestow garments on others. It's a little bit of a tease as to where we're going. So I want you to pay attention to how many times Joseph receives garments and he's promoted and elevated, and how many times he's stripped of his garments and demoted and punished throughout the Chronicles from Genesis 37 through 50. We've already seen Joseph invested with this garment, this prestigious garment by his father, but then at Dothan, his brothers divest him or strip him of this garment, and now he's thrown into the cistern and he is sold into slavery. Joseph is going to receive garments and have them stripped away. Receive another garment and have it stripped away. And in the end, Joseph is going to be so blessed, he'll finally be in a position not to receive garments, but to give them. Because now Joseph is in a position to give social status to others as opposed to just receiving social status from those that he works for. You guys tracking with me? Pay attention to the garment, the anthropological significance of the garment motif in the Joseph Chronicles. Let me say this, and we want to talk about this on Tuesday during Life Group. Here is a quote from John Walton, the author of the Genesis NIVAC commentary. Dr. Walton said this. I thought this was brilliant and thought that we needed to contemplate and meditate and reflect on this. Here's the Coram Deo. Here's how we live this out in the presence before the face of God. You guys hold what you got. Watch this. Watch what Dr. Walton says. He says, in the process, the question has shifted from whether God can deliver the covenant benefits that was promised to Abraham's family to whether God can use this family to bring a blessing to the world. Can all the nations of the earth be blessed through individuals and a family who are constantly on the brink of self-destruction? I love that. Because the covenant is about two things. It's about God blessing Abraham and his family, but then on the other side of it, it's about that family being a blessing, right? It's about blessed to be a blessing. You guys remember when we started out in Genesis 12, we talked about top line blessings and bottom line responsibility. The Bible, which I've cut in two, it's not sacrilegious, but the Bible is about God's blessings to us and then our responsibility to be a blessing. The two go together. The Abrahamic covenant is about God saying, I'm going to bless you. That's my responsibility. You then have a responsibility to go and be a blessing. And what we've seen in the story so far, God can deliver on his blessings to the family. The question Dr. Walton wants us to answer is, can this family, as trifling and as depraved and as sinful and as wicked as they are, can they be a blessing to the world? That's what we're not sure about that, are we? Because if you're on the brink of self-destruction, how can you be a blessing? So I want us to think about that in our families. Can we be the blessing that God has called us to be if we're on the brink, if we're on the edge of destroying ourselves by our own sinfulness, selfishness, disobedience? Can we fulfill God's call on our life if we're going to sabotage ourselves? So I want every parent, everybody who's a part of a tribe to do some self-reflection and some contemplation and some meditation on, are we positioned to be who God has called us to be and do what God has called us to do? This family is destroying themselves. Jacob is worried about danger from the outside, but he's clueless about the danger from within. We are our own worst enemies. It ain't them, it's us. So God, as we sing hallelujah today, thank you that you are a God who delivers on his promises to his people. God, you've blessed this family, even though at every turn they've tried to squander the blessings that you have bestowed upon them. And here they are, doing the same thing again as they sell their brother into slavery. They kidnap him and then they sell him into slavery. 2 crimes in one act. God, how can you use these people to bring Messiah Jesus into the world? It doesn't make sense. But God, you're sovereign. And God, we are not forgotten when we're in the pits of life. We're not forgotten and we're not forsaken. And so God, no matter what the mystery, no matter what the adversity, we will raise a hallelujah. We will challenge everybody around us to praise our God, because you're worthy not just when everything is going well, but even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's hard, when we are crying out for mercy and grace and for goodwill and favor with every fiber of our being, we will still raise a hallelujah. So God, thank you that you said you'd never leave us nor forsake us. You cannot forsake yourself, and we are yours. So God, no matter what we're going through today, each household under the sound of my voice, God, you know what they're going through. God, Joseph is proof that you go with your people. You are in every hardship, every difficulty, every adversity, every calamity. You're in it all. So God, we thank you that we live coram Deo. We thank you that everything that we encounter is in the presence and before the face of God. Nothing is hidden from your view. So we just worship you today because you're worthy. In Jesus' name.